Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner. Welcome to another edition of Trail Runner Nation. My name is Don Freeman.
And I'm Scott War. What motivates a 22-year-old to run 1,600 milers in a single year with no... I'm sorry, I'm going to start over. What motivates a 22-year-old to run 1,600 milers in a single year while holding down two jobs? Boy, I want to know. That's what we're going to find out today with when Trail Runner Nation member Matt Lemos introduced us to Nicholas Steele. He's a young runner who's quietly doing something pretty extraordinary, and we want to find out more about that. He's just 5 races into his goal of finishing 1,600-mile races in 2025. Nicholas is chasing history and doing it with nothing but grit, gratitude, and a love for the trails. Today, we want to explore what draws this younger generation to the trail and ultra running, and why Nicholas might be the future of our sport. Nicholas, thanks for joining us. Let's start with the obvious question. Why are you even thinking about running a single 100-miler at 22 years old?
Yeah, so it all started when I just realized our limits are so much further than we actually really believe. I did my first marathon I'd say about a year and a half ago. And quickly from there, I just wanted more. And so I asked myself the question, how far can I push myself? So I did the Backyard Ultra format on my own here in Mankato, Minnesota. And I ended up going for 14 yards or 52 miles. And I was like, wow, I thought it was going to take me 10 years to get to this point, but it was right here the entire time.
Oh, wait. Okay, we got to back up. You got to put a little more color to that story, Nicholas.
Yeah.
You decided you were going to do your own Backyard Ultra. That means you charted the course. You laid it out. No one else was running with you. You weren't racing against anybody. Tell us a little, why did you do that?
I just wanted to see how far I could push myself. I did have a friend there. He wasn't racing with me, but he was there for the last, I would say half. He ended up doing a half marathon with me. So he'd probably share about half of the loop, and then he'd run back to the start. And there was like this little tiny cutoff corner where it was kind of like two big loops like this. And so he'd just go straight across and wait for me. But yeah, no, I was just curious, how far can I push my limits? And obviously it's not true Backyard Ultra because there's only one person doing it. So it was funny because I had this paper where I wrote down my splits for every single yard. And at the end, I wrote DNF, question mark, or finish, question mark. I didn't know which one because
I like it.
I'm the only person. So yeah.
I'm curious, is this part of your nature? I mean, have you wanted to know your limits even as a younger kid? Like how many decibel points can you memorize pi or something like that? I don't know. What is this something you've always kind of had the hankering for?
Nothing like that, but I've always been very adventurous. So as a kid, while everybody was growing up on video games and being indoors, and once in a while we'd all hang out outside, I would always be outside. So I was always out there just adventuring, and then I got into running at a pretty early age, I'd say around 12 years old, and then just started, going from there. And I always just liked testing my limits. So my first half marathon was actually 2 years ago from when I finished my first 100-miler. So there's a 2-year gap in between first half marathon and first 100-miler.
So Nicholas, is this backyard your backyard, or did you borrow a neighbor's, or how did you find it?
Yeah, so it's on local trails here in town. I made sure to not, go through. It was mainly on asphalt. It was just on. It's called the Red Jacket Trail here in town. So I just stayed on there from pretty much sunrise until sunset, and then I decided to go home.
And you stopped at 14. Why didn't you go 15, or why didn't you stop at 12? 12's a good number.
Yeah, I was absolutely cooked. I didn't know how to pace the thing. At the time, time itself was a big aspect of my racing, and all I cared about was time. So I would split about 36 minutes for these loops, and I'd have so much downtime, and I didn't know at the time because it was my first ever ultra. And so I'd sit in the chair and wait, and then I get really tight and then cramp up, and then I get back out there on another loop. So by the time it was like 12, 13 yards, I just couldn't go anymore at all.
You know, this sport is very much community driven. As a 22-year-old getting into this sport, did you know of the community? Were there other running groups that you were part of and learning about this ultra sport from? Obviously, you had heard about the backyard ultras. How have you been learning about the things in our community and about the sport?
Yeah, so I learned on YouTube actually. Well, I
I
think
love it.
initially my first initial lesson was like, I just want to see how far I can go. I was really curious, so I had that question, and then I learned on YouTube about the backyard ultra format, and I saw there was this one race where you had 20 minutes to do 1 mile loop, and it had like hundreds of feet of elevation or something. And so that kind of motivated me to do the backyard ultra format. But I'd say it was just mainly I just wanted to push my limits and see how far I could go, you know. And that's what kind of got me into it.
Have you met some other people in community? Obviously, Nation member Matt Lamos ran with you at your last race, which was what? That was a backyard ultra as well, right? What was the
It was
name
a
of that?
24-hour run.
Oh,
Prickly
24.
Pine 24-hour solo. It was the first ever race for their race organization. And the first year, first ever race for them. So I felt very honored to be a part of that. That was really cool.
So you obviously met Matt. Had you
Yep.
started as you're trying to experiment with what is Nicholas made of and how far can Nicholas go? How did you meet other people in the running community?
Yeah, I mainly meet people through these races. I've met some people in town, some people just out on the trails. If I see a person, I just run up to the person and I just go, "Ooh, person, I want to talk to them," you know? So I try to
Nice.
chat. Sometimes people are like, I'm trying to run fast, you know, so don't talk to me. And then most of the time they're like, hey, you know, and then that's how I meet someone. And it's really funny because it's a whole story, but because I drank a strawberry Arizona iced tea, which I've never drank before, I ended up puking. And then I met a person that lives here in town that's also around the same age as myself, and he's running the Black Hills 100 as well. So we were the only two people in Mankato signed up, and we're both the same age. And just because of that strawberry Arizona iced tea, I met that guy. So I thought it was fun.
Wait.
But
I don't understand the
yeah,
connection. Did you throw up on this
there was
guy?
so
How did that happen?
yeah, okay, I'll try to go through it quickly because it's the whole thing. So I stayed up all night because I was editing videos for my YouTube channel because I record cinematic videos for every single 100 miler. So I was up at like 7, 8 a.m. I've been up all night, and I was looking at the clock, and I'm like, oh, okay, well, we're not going to sleep tonight. We might as well just get out there for a run. So I get out there, I start running. And while I'm editing this video, I was drinking this new Arizona iced tea that I've never drank before. And I got about 10 miles in, and I came up to this path that goes two different ways. I was like, okay, either I can go uphill slightly, but I don't feel too great, or I can go downhill. And I know there's a segment downhill that I created not too long ago. And at the time, it was only myself that has been on the leaderboards on Strava. It's a Strava segment. But this guy named Dylan Herms, he broke my record on the segment. So we're the two only people, and I don't usually care about records. I like keeping the local legends for the Strava segments, but it was only us two. So I was like, I'm not feeling too well. I'm like, do I go home, grab some Tums, or do I go beat the segment? So I ran down to beat the segment, start at the bottom of the hill, and I'm cooking up the hill way past the time. I get towards the top of the hill, and I'm like, oh, and then I just start barfing. I'm hanging onto the handrail, and I'm looking up at the segment, and I'm like, I'm looking down at my watch. I'm like, oh, I already passed. I'm like, dang you, Dylan Herms. And then, so I was really frustrated initially, but after I got to the top and about a half mile later, I recorded another video, and I was like, you know what? Thank you, Dylan Herms, because without you, I wouldn't have finished my run. So thank you. And so
Nice.
because of that, because of the exact time that it took me to barf and the exact time it got me to get up there, I ran down this path, saw a person, and of course I was like, okay, let's talk to the person. So I ran over and talked to him. Then I met, a guy that's running Black Hills with me. So it's pretty cool.
That's really cool. And that's one of the things
Yeah.
I love about this sport is when you're out on runs, even if it's the same trail. Don and I were on the same trail this morning running, and we met 2 or 3 people that we've never seen out there. And it's kind of fun to stop and talk to them if you have time and learn about them and see what they're made of.
So I'm
Yeah.
going to ask you a question, Nicholas. Did you run in high school? Was running any part of your life? Were you punished as a English student to go out and run laps when you misspelled
Yeah.
words? I mean, what got you into this sport?
Okay, so well, if we go like back to the beginning, if we just briefly go through it, I started running when I was in soccer. My dad had me play soccer as a kid. And I remember vividly there were times when we were, punished and we were forced to run laps. And so I would always win on these laps. And one of my coaches that I had said, okay, we're not done running laps until somebody beats Nick. And I didn't want anybody to beat me, so we kept going and going and going, and then eventually I stopped. I stopped running as fast so somebody could beat me because I was getting tired too. So that's probably around when I was like 10 years old. But I got into high school, or I got into middle school, started running there. That's when I really started running, like track and field and stuff. And then in high school, I was running track, and that's when I joined cross country. In my junior year of high school, but I didn't really like it. I remember having to get out on these 3-mile runs, 2-mile runs, and I absolutely dreaded it. I did not like it at all. I hated it. And then got into college, lost touch with running. And then within a year, I was like, I wish I could be back where I was splits wise. So then I started getting back into running. And then from there, the obsession just unfolded.
So, well, we're grateful for Dylan Herms for getting you out there. Do you run with Dylan? And
No,
at any time you
I've
guys
never
hooked
met
up?
him in person. I've never met Dylan in person. I've only like seen his profile on Strava. And he runs in town. I've never seen him before. So, I was just like, Dylan Herms, dude, because he goes on all the segments and he goes after them. So
Dylan Herms could be a 65-year-old lady,
On
as
a
far
bike.
as you know.
On
Yeah,
a bike.
he doesn't even have a profile picture. It's like this like weird logo or something. I don't know.
Oh, I hope he listens to this podcast because Dylan Herms, we are calling you out. We want to find out who you are.
You know, I'm
That's funny.
very curious, Nicholas, about how important Strava is to you and the new generation. I had a Strava account for maybe a year, and there was I don't even know what local legend. There's the fastest segments or whatever, and that was kind of a gamification, and I kind of enjoyed that. But then I finally just turned off my account because it wasn't important to me. How important is Strava? Is that how you measure your runs and record your runs? Is that your main database?
Yeah, so I record my runs on my Apple Watch and then I
Yeah.
download it over to Strava. I have heard a lot of people my age saying, man, I don't like Strava because I'm too competitive, and so they look at other people's stats and then they're like, I'm not doing as much or I'm not as fast. But when I look at Strava, I just look at mileage. And I don't look at other people's mileage. Like I do look, but I'm not judgmental about it. I just look at my own mileage and I just want to see that number go up,
Ah.
So that's all that I care about. I also like taking local legends on segments. So not fastest time, but I like making the most amount of sense. So there's a couple segments here in town where like there's 60 miles completed on the segment within the last 90 days. And I hold like 40 of those miles. So
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I love it.
So it's an interesting thing. Maybe it's time, Don, we create a Strava account for you so that you can see how record what you're doing out there on the trails. I don't know.
I'm going to use my e-bike, Scott, and I'm going to become the local Dylan Herms is what I'm going to do.
Yeah. That's what one of my coworkers says, Kelton. He's always like, "Yeah, I'm gonna hop in my car and start driving these segments just to beat you." And I'm like, "Dude, whatever."
Let's talk about a lot of times we talk with people that are really into their careers, established in their careers. You're on the front end of building a life for yourself, and right now you're sharing time between two jobs. I think you said you're working at Chipotle for a little, a few hours a week, or how many hours a week, and you also work at a gym. How many
Yep.
hours do you work a week, and how do you fit the running into that work schedule?
Yeah, so it's a lot. I work between 42 and 45 hours per week, and I'm on my feet for all these hours as well.
Hmm.
And then I just wake up every morning, and just put in like a 3 to 4 hour run. And then I go straight to work. And then after work, I probably have about an hour or two of downtime where I eat my food and relax. Or if I'm in between ultras, then I'm editing videos and I fall asleep while I'm editing and then wake up and repeat the whole process. So it's just like straight running and work. I love it.
How much of your meals are supported by Chipotle extra food?
Yeah, so I probably intake over 2,000 calories. I'd say between 2 and 2.5 thousand calories every day at Chipotle. So Chipotle literally fuels my diet. I've been trying to get them to sponsor me, but I
Oh,
Serious?
can't
no,
because
Nick,
like they
they
literally fuel me.
they are sponsoring you. I don't think they give you the whole picture. They're taking care of you.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Oh, I had a question and I lost it, Don.
Well, good. I'll come up with one. What are some of the lessons you've learned so far along the way in these long runs? What's something you wish you would have known that you now know?
Yeah, there's so many lessons with ultra. Just because it's such a long distance, there's so many factors that can play into a race, as you guys know.
Mhm.
Um, so there's so many lessons I have learned, and I'm still learning from them. And I don't believe that I'll ever stop learning about them, no matter how many I do. Um, but I would say the key ones are chafing, recovery, and time. Just dropping your aspect of time can really help you get through those miles quicker
Mm.
because you're not thinking about it repetitively. You know.
Yeah, talk a little bit more about dropping the aspect of time. Maybe the time. I'm just going to throw a couple things out there. The time to finish the race, the time that it takes to get to the next aid station, the time. What? How do you navigate this time thing?
Yeah. So I mean, just time in general. So it can be all of those options. Um, but it's just every single second that passes by, it's not going to change, because time always stays the same. So if you can just look over at like this weird tree, and you're like, wow, that's a weird tree as you're passing it, then you're a whole like 15 steps in the future and a whole what like 6 seconds ahead, which felt like literally a split second. So if you can just distract your mind, I like to call it the golden retriever
Uh-huh.
mindset. So you're like, ooh, tree, ooh, grass, oh, cloud, then in no time you'll be 15 miles down the road, and it'll literally feel like 5 minutes.
Huh,
The golden retriever time
mindset.
mindset. I love it. I love it. I'm curious about the chafage. Did you learn this the hard way, like most of us have, or did you
Yeah.
hear about chafage from someone that you were running a race with?
I learned this the hard way. Yeah. I did a solo self-supported run from downtown Mankato here in Minnesota to downtown Shakopee and back, which is about 133.57 miles. My aid stations were about a marathon apart, and I had some chafing cream with me, but I used to just put on the chafing cream every marathon. Um, and so I chafed badly during that. And also up here on like where the ultra vest is too. So from that race, I learned I need to put some sort of barrier in between my skin and the ultra vest. So I put KT tape there now. So
Uh-huh.
now there's KT tape on the hotter days when I'm only wearing a t-shirt like this. On the colder days, you have multiple layers, so the ultra vest can just slide around, so you don't really chafe on there. But for down below, I learned you just need just to grow stuff out and put on chamoy sputter every like 5-10 miles, and then you'll be good. So that's something I learned in the past couple races.
So what's your go-to bag that you have? It sounds to me like you
Right.
put some chafing cream in that bag, but what else is in the bag? What have you picked up along the way that you said, you know what? I'm not running this without that piece of gear.
Yeah, so there's a lot of gear that I love having, right? But I would say some things that don't actually physically help me, I still carry with myself. Like I have two braces. So I did just get done running, so that's why I'm wearing this. But these two wristbands that say "Pain is temporary" and "Whatever it takes." My dad got me
Ah,
them at the beginning of the season, and I've worn them every single race, every single training run. Because when things suck, I look down at them and I'm like, "Oh man, like we can really push through this." So those are some of the things that you know kind of help me upstairs. But like the chafing butter or electrolytes, obviously water. We need water, and like sun protection stuff like this bucket hat always helps. Um, yeah, I would say those are the main things. I love wearing the ultra vest too, just so I can have my whole lower half free. And then I do have these bands that I put on right here on my knees. Um, these things have helped me post the Shakopee run because I had some pressure in my knee, and ever since I've been wearing them, it's taken the pressure away. Um, so I wear them every run too.
interesting. Don, do you know anything about those bands?
No, I know that I'm going to go out and get one. Are they on Amazon?
Yeah, they're just called shock absorbing bands.
I don't know how many you can buy at a time, but I'm going to put them up and down my legs, maybe a couple on my elbows. I'm doing the whole body. I'm putting those things on.
One around your neck?
If it helps, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Nicholas, I'm curious. You say that you go out, in the morning for a 2-3 hour run or whatever. How do you know how far you need to run in training for preparing for a race? Do you Google training for a 100-mile race? How many miles should I run? Do you have a coach? How do you decide how many days consecutively to run? Do I do speed work? Do I do strength training? How have you figured that out?
Yeah, so it's all just a learning process, right? Like everything in life. Um, I've learned that as I test out certain things over time, some things work, some things don't. So if you give it a long period of time, then you can figure out what works for you. Initially, I was researching how to train for a 100 miler, and I was hearing stuff about back to back weeks,
Hmm.
or back to back days. So you would do, like, let's say a long run day, so like 24 miles or something, at the time when I was running. So 24 miles and then followed up with 18 miler. So you'll be really tired on that 18 miler, but when you push through that, then your body's like, okay, this is the normal. So I learned that way. Now I just go out there and just do everything that I have learned what works best for me. So I have build weeks and recovery weeks. My build weeks, I run 5 days of the week. My recovery weeks, I run 4 days of the week. And then I cycle in between them. So I have like 2 run days, cycle, and 2 run days. And then 2 of the days during both weeks are always cycling.
So, Nicholas, do you have a mentor there? Do you have some experienced runners that always show up at the trailhead that you can, glean some information from, or are you pretty much left to your keyboard and to YouTube and to find out what's going on?
Yeah, so I would say I don't know if this is a thing, but I would say I'm my own mentor. Like I don't have anybody there that has ever that I've been looking up to. I've just been looking at how far can I push myself, and that kind of is what drives me to go further. So no, I don't usually I don't go on group run. Actually, I go on a group run every single day that the sun's out because I run with my shadow, but I don't go on group runs with like other people usually. Only when I see people out on the trail, then I'm like, oh hey, you know.
I'm reminded as Nicholas is talking about this, our discussion about Alex Hutchinson's new book, The Explorer's Gene, and the natural tendency we have as human beings to go out and explore. And it sounds like, Nicholas, you've embraced that on your own, that you're putting on your bucket hat, putting on your vest, and going out and just seeing what the world has to offer and what you can do to push your limits.
Yeah, I love just being one with the outdoors, with the trail, with nature. I'm not like a naturalist or something, but we're running outside, so we're running in the world of nature. So for example, like today, I just found these on the trail. Like it's just random flowers. I thought they're pretty, so I picked them up and put them in there. And so then in my feeling inside, I'm like, I am one with nature, so I belong out here.
Oh.
This is my home, you know. And so then that drives me to run further. Also, when I see a new trail, I kind of look down at my watch. I'm like, how much time do I got? And then I go down the trail, you know, usually, even if I'm squeezing out time, because I'm curious, where does it go, right? Yeah, we're adventurers.
Have you got a lot of? Go ahead, Scott.
You first.
I was just wondering, do you have some great trails out there? I know where we are, there's countless trails, and it keeps us constantly entertained. In fact, our memory is so short that we forget if we've run one, so there's an advantage. But someone young like you probably have a pretty good mind. Do you have a lot of trails to choose from out there?
Yeah, so Mankato, Minnesota is really diverse in trails compared to the surrounding area. The surrounding area is really flat, but we are situated on a river valley, so it has terraces, so you can get elevation training in. You're not at elevation, but you can still get the elevation training in. And also, there's a decent amount of trails here in town. Obviously, as an ultra runner, you know every inch of every trail that you run down when you give it enough time in the town. So I know pretty much every inch of every trail here, and there's a lot of trails. But yeah, there's a decent amount of trails here compared to like the surrounding area. So I'd say so.
Nicholas, I'm going to point out Captain Obvious here. You know, most 22-year-olds that you're probably hanging out with, they're not spending their weekends out in nature running, you know, hours and hours on end. Do they think you're crazy? Do they think you're nuts? How do you justify to them that this is who you are and what you want to do?
Yeah, so the people that I knew before I started ultra running, they knew the past version of myself, which was, you know, like them, like I'd go out and party and stuff, and I drink. But now I have substituted running for drinking, and that also kind of drives me because whenever I have a bad day and whenever I feel like drinking, instead I'm like, no, we're going out for a run. So I'm over a year sober now, which is amazing.
Nice.
And yeah, no, when I meet new people, they're like, okay, that's crazy, you know, but I'm very relaxed about it. I'm like, oh no, I'm just a chill, normal guy, you know. But I just like running a lot, you know, so I just go out there and I do it.
So when somebody comes into Chipotle, do they go, "Oh, hey, you're the running dude. You're the dude I see." Are you in a small town or a big town? You know, I don't know.
How big is Mankato?
I think it's nearing 50,000, so not
tiny.
big, but
Yeah.
but not as tiny as the other towns around here. So it's big for the area, like within probably 50 square miles. But yeah, no, when somebody comes in to Chipotle, like usually it's just people that I know because I work at the gym as well. So there's a lot of people my age that are there, so they already kind of know about me. But yeah, no, I'm not very like popular, you know, or like celebrity like, and I don't really care too much about that stuff either. But whenever I see somebody that kind of looks like a runner, then I talk to them if I get the chance at Chipotle, and like, hey, you look like a runner, you know, and then we chat and stuff.
Do you think Dylan Herms has been into Chipotle?
I don't know. I don't know what he looks like. So, but I have been working there for 3 years, and it's the one right off campus. So, so many people go there. Almost everybody goes there, you know.
I'm sure you have served him a burrito at some point.
Probably. Yeah.
You need to have a little sign. Let Chipotle allow you to put a little sign. If you are Dylan Herms, I owe you a burrito, and you can treat him to a burrito for helping you out there.
Hey, Scott, we don't have a big budget here at TRN, but we do have enough for one burrito. If Dylan Herms hears this, we'll take care of him, Nicholas. We'll pay you back. We'll send you. We'll Venmo you. Whatever it takes. We want him to have a burrito on
Sure.
us.
That's funny.
Why 100 miles, Nicholas? You've run a half marathon.
Oof.
You've run a marathon. Why 100 miles? What drew you to that distance? Why not stay at the marathon? Why not stay at a 50 miler? Why not go beyond 100?
Yeah, that's the question, isn't it? Right? Like why do people run marathons? I don't know, why not like a half marathon? But 100 miles, because it's something that's so physically hard on your body that it's hard to recover from, and it's hard to just simply do, right? If you run enough, then you can do a casual marathon. Well, like today, right? I ran a marathon before this podcast. And it is hotter outside, so it took me a little bit longer, but I feel perfectly fine right now, you know? So I don't think I'll ever be able to get to the point where you can do 100 miles every day, you know? So it's so tough to the point where it's just, you just can't do it every single day. So that's why, because I love training for it, and then just giving all of my effort towards it. A thing like, I would say around like 60 miles is kind of the limit for me, is when I'm like, okay, past 60 miles, and I like, it's going to be tough to recover from that.
So let's kind of talk about these 1,600-mile runs. How you're into it 5 so far, correct?
Yep.
When did you start? When did the year mark start? Was it a January 1, or you've got another start date?
Yeah, so it was March 14th. March 14th was the first one. It was down in Missouri. So I ran 5 100s when I completed the 5th one within 7.3 weeks.
Wow. So how long does it take you to recover from one of those? Keeping in mind you're 22, and we all wonder what it's like to recover at 22.
Remember back when you were 22, Don?
Yes, I do.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's the thing. A lot of people were talking about that at the Backyard Ultra that I did this year, Elm Creek Backyard Ultra. They're saying, "Oh man, it must be nice to be young," you know. But when we talk about Ed, you know, the guy that holds the most amount of 100 miler finishes, I think he's over like 250 now or something. He broke the world record for most amount of 100 milers completed within a single calendar year last year, and he did 52. And he didn't start until February, and he's 64 years old. So how can you be 64 years old and then recover to do enough 100 milers, more than one every week, right? So I think it's more than just age. Obviously, age probably has a factor in there, but it's just learning about those recovery processes, which I've learned if you keep compression socks on after the 100 miler, if you ice your feet, if you make sure that within the first 24 hours, you get up and move around for a couple hours, even though you don't want to. It's still part of your training, and it still helps you with your recovery. So it's all about recovery when you get ready for the next one.
Nicholas, I'm surprised how much wisdom you've gained in the short 2 years you've been running ultras. Of course, there's a lot of information out there. You mentioned YouTube. There's so many resources out there for you. And now I forgot what my question was.
If I was going to ask you a question, go ahead.
Nope, I forgot it now.
I would. That's what happens when you're not 22, Nicholas.
Yeah.
So, do you have any concern about completing 16 of these in a year? Is there something in your pit of your stomach saying, you know what, I've got to kind of balance this? Is there anything?
I don't think you're going to be allowed to have any concern about it, because if you have a concern about it, it's going to mess with your mental game. And as we know, ultra marathons is a huge mental game. So I think a big part of your training, not just when you're out there on the trail, but in your everyday life, is to keep your mental game strong and don't allow yourself to talk negatively towards yourself. So whenever a question like that does pop up, I just tell myself to silence it. And then I move forward. I replace it with a happy thought.
This is really good life experience for you in whatever career you choose. You know, I don't know what it's going to be, but these lessons translate to everything, whether you're in school, an internship, you know, you're building homes, or doesn't matter. you're going to use these same lessons will be reapplied over and over again for your success.
Yeah, if you can push through something so hard, like running 100 miles, if you can push through all of the training, all of those miles, and the race itself, if you can push through something so hard, it makes life that much easier. So that's why I train every day before work, because I go through something that's just so hard. It doesn't matter how tough work is, because
That's a
I've
good
already
point.
gone through the hardest part of my day. And so now I get to just, get through everything else. It does make life so much easier to get through, and what make life so much happier as well.
Nicholas, have you failed at doing anything with running yet?
I have, and it hurts badly. So let's see. Give me a second here. I just ran my stats
Is this your
yesterday.
training log we're looking at?
No, my training log is, well, it's up here, and it's also on Strava, and then I have a calendar. But I ran some stats, some lifetime stats yesterday, because I was curious. How many half marathons have I ran in my life? So if you were to count in between 13.11 miles to 26.21 miles, because some days I can only squeeze in 25 miles, I can't get a full marathon in. I have ran 108 half marathons, counting today 14 marathons, and then so on and so forth. But I my first half was in October 2021, and then my first 100 miler. Oh, it was only 1 year apart. Was in on the same date, 1 year later. So it took me a year to get from a half marathon to 100 miler, and my first attempt at 100 miles was planned so poorly. I planned it by myself on a 1.88 mile course. It had over 170 feet of elevation, and it was October at the time, and it just so happened to be over 90 degrees on that day. So I got to about 27 miles of this absurd course, because I didn't know any better. And then I ended up dropping. And I remember sitting on my couch that night and just thinking, I'm perfectly fine right now. And this sucks. So I went back out there, did another 7 miles. And then I was like, okay, well, I'm not going to hit 100 miles within the day. And at the time was still a big aspect of my training, which since I've learned to drop it. But I said, okay, we're going to reschedule this thing. So I scheduled it out 2 weeks later, and then I went forward again, and I succeeded on my own here in Mankato. So I've failed once before at 100 miles, and it hurt me deeply. And I've also failed at a solo attempt at an Ironman. And from then, I decided no more time. I do not care about it. And so then I made another attempt at that Ironman, succeeded, and then I did an official one.
So,
Yeah.
so what you're telling from the two failures, what the big takeaway or aha is, don't let time dictate your race.
100%. As long as you keep moving forward, you're going to be there at the finish line. So if you can just move time aside, you don't even have to drop it. You could just shove it into the back of your head. As long as you put it somewhere else and just keep moving forward, you will be there at the finish line.
That's
Golden retriever mindset.
And that's such a good point, because we burn energy thinking and worrying. And if you're using that energy that you want to move down the trail to worry, you're just robbing yourself of some free miles. You got to put it back and shove it in the back of your mind, just like you said. Don't let it consume any energy, any focus.
Yeah,
100%.
I'm trying to think back to my 22-year-old mind, Nicholas, as I'm talking to you. You mentioned earlier that the 60-mile hurdle is where things get tough for you. After 60 miles, that's where the mental strain comes, the physical pain starts maybe. I don't know if a 22-year-old feels physical pain. Can't remember that far back. How do you control your mind? How do you, when things get tough, how do you control or manage those negative thoughts and those negative feelings?
Yeah, so it goes back to training, right? And not just training on the trail, but training in everyday life. So as long as you can acknowledge those negative thoughts, and not just acknowledge it the first time when it's happening, but every single day when you're at work, when you're out on the trail, when you're just here at home, worrying about bills and stuff, if you can just access that thought of the negativity and then just move it aside and replace it, or even just move it aside and just forget about it. That's how you get through it. Yeah.
That's a pretty mature thought. How do you do that? How do you replace it, or how do you move it aside and forget about it?
Yeah.
What strategy do you use?
That's a really tough question. Because it just comes with learning about your mind and learning ways that work for you. So let's say I'm out running, right? It's nighttime now. Let's use the Elm Creek Backyard Ultra for example. So I ended up taking the assist on the Backyard Ultra. This was a couple weeks ago. I ended up DNFing at 170 miles. So in the second night, towards the end of the night, I was having some pretty negative thoughts, and I was like, man, this really hurts, every single step, it really hurts. But when that negative thought came into mind, I said, oh no, that's a negative thought. So then I took it and I shoved it in the back and I said, oh wow, look at that tree, right? That tree is pretty cool. And then I moved on from there. So just taking it, like, I don't know how to describe it, but you just grab the thought and then you just shove it back there and then you replace it with something else. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's positive or if it's neutral. As long as you replace the thought, then you can move forward.
I'm going to repeat something that we learned from one of our friends. It's been on the podcast a number of times, Tosh, Brian Contosh, and he says he's a former Navy SEAL, and he says,
Marine. No, mean to
sorry,
correct you.
I apologize.
It's important.
I apologize. It is very important, and I thought I was right, but I would never question you, Don, as a former Marine. So anyway, this is what he says: when there's a negative thought, you need. I like what you said. You acknowledge it, and that's what he says. You need to acknowledge that there's a negative thought, and you give it a certain amount of time where you actually think about it, and then once that time is up, you move it aside. And I think that that's a huge lesson that a 22-year-old Nicholas Steele has learned very, very early. So kudos for you. And I'm really impressed that you learned that on your own and not by reading a book or listening to a great podcast like Trail Runner Nation.
Nicholas, I get a question for you. Nicholas Steele, is that your stage name or is that your given name at birth?
That's my given name.
Oh,
yeah,
that's
it's really
awesome.
cool.
Hey.
I think Steele's pretty cool. Yeah,
it is a cool name. That's why I ask. It's something that I kind of like Billy Strings. And if I play the guitar, I call myself Billy Strings and you're Nicholas Steele. I love it. You're 22. Where do you see yourself at 44?
Oh,
44.
Good question.
Do you want me to be completely honest here?
100%.
Yeah.
I mean, I will be no matter what, but I don't like saying these things because they haven't happened yet. And I've noticed, I'm just going to go aside real quick. When I was attempting my first Ironman, I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to finish it. And then I didn't. And so because I said it and I didn't do it, it hurt me so deeply because there were people expecting that I was going to finish it. So I don't like saying that I'm going to be here, I'm going to be there, but I'm going to try to hold the most amount of 100 milers of all time. And the thing is, if I can get the funding, because I need sponsorships, I don't have a sponsor yet. I would love to get a sponsorship to push these records. I want to be on the 100 milers list pretty soon.
Well, that's a goal, achievable goal, I believe, with your personality and your character.
Do you think that you'll have to dress up as a jester like Ed Eddinghausen?
No, that does make it easy to remember, though. To remember who
it does.
He is. So I've been thinking about that while I'm out on the trail every once in a while, and I'm like, should I have something that people can remember me as, or could they just remember me as my personality? I don't know, because if you wear one certain thing, so For example, I like wearing dinosaur shorts with meteors, or burrito shorts, goofy shorts. Maybe I'm known as the goofy shorts guy, but do I really want to be the goofy shorts guy? Not really. Like, I want to be myself. So, yeah, I don't know.
I love it. I love it.
I think if
Um,
Ed had a last name like Steele, he wouldn't have had to dress up as a jester. So you're just
Sure.
fine.
Hey, Nicholas, let's say that some kid comes in, or let's say that you're running some morning, and there's a kid or couple kids riding their bikes around, and they see you running, and they continue to ride their bikes for a couple hours, and then I see you running back, and they stop you and go, "Haven't you been running for like a few hours? What's wrong with you?" And maybe they're intrigued a little bit, and they're thinking, I want to be a runner. What advice would you give a young Nicholas Steele that came upon an ultra runner or trail runner? What would you say to them?
I would say keep pushing your limits. Your body can handle far more than your mind will allow. And remember that. That's what I would tell them.
That's great. That's great. Nicholas, it's been a thrill getting to know. Did you have another question, Don?
I do. I'm just
okay.
curious. Have you ever been injured where you needed to pull back, lay back, and heal?
Good question.
Yeah, I mean, it's really tough for me to pull back. But I do realize if I'm injured enough, I would have to, pull back, and I would have to relax. But it's very tough for me because I love running so much. There about a year and a half ago, I was cycling along the Cicada Trail here. It goes in between Mankato and Faribault, Minnesota. And I was on part of the trail that I've never been on before. At the time, I was training for Ironmans. And I wasn't holding onto my bike. I had my arm resting on my aero bar, and I was taking a drink out of one of my water bottles, and the front wheel hit a pothole, and it went sideways, and the bike rode me for about 20, 30 feet. And so from there, I had this like internal weirdness going on where I couldn't run, like just vertical movements made it very hard to breathe. So for a week straight, I had to not run and just cycle. And I could even cycle outside because when it was bumpy, then it was very hard to breathe. So I had to cycle on my trainer. So I tried my best to avoid all injuries, but obviously sometimes they're inevitable. They're going to show up. It's just how do you go about that injury? I hope it never happens, but I think it's going to happen someday, sometime, and I just have to figure it out as it comes. But I would say that's the last time.
That's a nice answer. Do you have a strategy in between your 16 races of how to prepare yourself for the next one?
Yeah, so it's all about recovery, right? So, but also staying uncomfortable so that these 100 milers don't take so much toll on your body. So coming into the season, I spent 4 weeks running over 100 miles. It was like 104, 106, 140, 122, 123 miles. And so bulking mileage like that, but not just strictly on asphalt. Like I'm also running on softer surfaces, so my body doesn't take as much of a blow. Just bulking that much mileage got me ready for that first 100 miler, and I was able to do 124.9 miles in 24 hours. And we were postponed for like 2.25 hours due to tornadoes and stuff. But after that race, because I've never bulked that much mileage before a race, so after that race, I was like, wow, like I feel all right. I was walking the next day, and it's because my body was used to the mileage. So I had another 100 miler the next weekend. It was a back-to-back weekend. And I ran 100.23 miles in 17 hours, 17 minutes, and 44 seconds, which was a PR. And I was not expecting to run that fast. It was very flat, but just doing that, I was like, there's a whole new meaning to your body can handle far more than your mind will allow. So in between these races, it depends how much weeks we got. Between the last race and this next upcoming race, I have 3 weeks. So I'm able to do a recovery week and then a build week, which is this week. And then next week, I can do a taper week. I say taper because I don't taper until the day before. And usually I'm putting down like a 10 miler. It's just all about staying uncomfortable and just keeping the mileage coming. but also being smart about it with how you run, where you run on softer surfaces, and your shoes.
So let's talk about zone 1, 2, or 3, however you want to describe them. Are you doing much speed work out there? Are you going real easy? What are you doing for your bulk of your miles on your build weeks?
Yeah, so all in zone 2. I'm keeping it all nice and relaxed. I don't do any more zone 3 or zone 4 heart rate training. Sometimes I seep into zone 3 at the end of my runs, or if it's hotter out like this, which today I was experiencing. Okay, how am I going to deal with this? Because if I'm running at a 9:30 pace, my heart rate is still at like 161. So how do I get it back down into zone 2? So that's something I'm still figuring out. I realize it's because I'm hot. My body is physically hot, so I do have this ice band data that's coming in, so I'm going to test that thing out and see how that goes. The bucket hat seems to help. I wet the bucket hat every 10 miles or so. But yeah, I mean, it's just about keeping that heart rate low. I feel speed work is not too important for very, very, very long miles. You just have to increase your endurance.
You're right. If you figure, a sub 20-hour 100-mile finish, you're not moving that fast. I'm not saying, 20 hours is an amazing time, but track work isn't necessary to push that 20-hour limit. I mean, it's good to get your leg turnover. It's good to put that in your hip pocket. So when you're going downhill, you've got the turnover and you get that neuro programming going. Totally get it. But it's important to stay healthy and race your race, as you're training, kind of thinking, getting in that groove.
Yeah.
Nick,
But
oh,
there is this there's this lady. Her name is Angela. She holds the Kansas State record for a 100 miler time, and she set it at the Prairie Spirit Trail 100, which was my second 100 miler this year, and it was her first ever time she ran 100 miles, and she broke the state record. And so she was talking to me about her coach and stuff, and I've noticed she does some like speed interval training, so maybe it does work. I just don't do it.
I don't know. Well, maybe there are some people that enjoy speed work. I don't know many of us trail and ultra runners that enjoy speed work. Although you'll find as you get older, the speed work does pay off in the long run.
It's good enough.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Nicholas, this has been a thrill. I have one final question for you. You mentioned heart rate monitoring and monitoring your heart rate. And then I also saw you are using an Apple Watch versus the fancy GPS running watches. Talk to me a little bit about that. I mean, is this a new Gen Alpha thing where people are rather have an Apple Watch than a Garmin or a Coros watch?
I wouldn't say so. No, my dad got me this watch. My parents got me this watch like 2 winters ago. So I'm just using it because it's what I got.
Yeah.
And I don't really have enough money to save up for like a Garmin or something. And I actually love the Apple Watch because it also gives you like just your current calorie stats and just it just gives you your whole lifestyle like stats. Um, but it is challenging in terms of racing in it for a 100 miler because even though I got the Apple Watch Ultra 2, which has the longest battery life for an Apple Watch, it only goes up to like 75, 80 miles. So I have to charge the watch and then record another run on Strava. So my runs for these 100 milers are segmented. And I wish that it could all be in one run, but that's something that I'll just have to kind of hope for in the future.
Or you just have to get faster, Nicholas. I mean,
Yeah.
it's all there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one.
So
That's a
I've
good one.
actually been
how do
thinking
we
about that. Yeah.
How do we follow you? Where do we find your YouTube clips that you make? Do you stay up late editing and you miss out on good rest? How do we find it?
Yeah, so I'm all over all of the socials. On Instagram, it's just my name, Nicholas.Steele _. My YouTube account is Nicholas Steele Endurance. And then Facebook is, of course, just my name. And then TikTok is Ultra Runner Nick Steele. I usually don't post on TikTok, but yeah, I make cinematic videos for every 100 miler, or I'm trying to. My editing skills are still getting better. So this latest one was the Elm Creek Backyard Ultra video that I've made. and that was my best one yet. And then I post a lot on my Instagram too.
Very good.
We'll make sure we'll make sure that we link those in the show notes so people that can enjoy your journey. Nicholas, it's been a thrill talking to you because it's fun to talk to the new generation, and I'm going to go out on a limb here and say that our community and our sport is in good hands with you, Nicholas, and your generation. After Don and I fall down the trail and become dust with the trail when we finally die, we know that you will be pounding the trail with your running shoes right on top of us.
Scott,
that was kind of a metaphor.
I don't authorize that close. I don't authorize that close right. That was a little rough.
Yeah, I mean, like we all got time on our clocks and it's ticking down, so we don't know how much time we got. So who knows? But yeah, no, I mean, I'm gonna try to just keep going, and keep pushing the limits. Because if I can finish a race and then still move forward, then I can go further. So yeah.
Awesome.
Well, let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch. When do you plan on? So by next February, you'll have the 16 in the can.
So I want to do it within a single calendar year. So my last race is before November. So
okay.
And I do have I posted my race schedule on my Instagram and also Facebook. So you can see all 16 100s on there. And then I have this little blurred out section that's on the bottom. So that's a bonus thing that I'm not saying what it is, but you can see it on there. It's in the beginning of November. So it's all within about 8.5 months for 16 100 milers.
Whoa.
And I also have a GoFundMe that's up right now. I started it at the beginning of the season because since I'm pretty young and even though I'm working 42 to 45 hour weeks, it's very tough to get the money for this much running, because I replace my shoes every month and a half. I put 800 miles on my shoes. And yeah, so it's a lot. So until I can get
bibs are
sponsors,
expensive. Yeah, bibs are expensive.
Yeah, I've already spent over $3,000 on just registration fees alone. So until I can get sponsors, then I got that. So one thing that I want to note real quick is if anybody wants to support the journey, then I'm running miles for them for one of these races. I'm going to put everybody's name on my back and then run with everybody because they're all here. And no matter if you donate or not, you're still there with me in the journey, so just following along, you're there with me. And I appreciate everyone. I love everybody.
Very
Thanks,
good, Nicholas.
Hey, we're glad that you joined us, and we got to learn a little bit more about the new generation that's coming up. Thank you so much. It energizes us. I hope we get a run sometime together. We'll put you behind us so that you can't take us out too fast. But more importantly, get your shoes, lace them up, and run.
Mas.